Living our lives looking forward and saying yes can lead to ever deeper, abundant health, wealth, love, and joy. And then sharing that abundance almost magically creates even more abundance and prosperity. Let's take a look. This is Prosperity and Something Greater. My guest today is Dr. Ebonie Vincent. She's a podiatrist practicing in Orange County, California. She grew up in Temecula, California in wine country, which of course I think is very cool, but attended college and podiatry school back on the East Coast and in the Midwest. Returning to Southern California, she then built a thriving podiatry practice, and she became a TV star on the reality series My Feet Are Killing Me on TLC, now in its third season. She shares in this episode how the producers found her from her social media posts and pretty much how she ignored them for a while and they had to really be persistent to find her and finally get through to her. Her story is about the word yes and how accepting what life brings can bring abundance in health, in wealth, in love and in joy, and how sharing that abundance magically creates more. It's a delight to share her story and insightful look at life and prosperity with you. Please enjoy Dr. Ebonie Vincent. Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast today. This is Rem. I'm delighted to have Dr. Ebonie Vincent. Thank you for taking the time today. I know you're busy and you got your patients and everything else, but thanks for taking the time to spend with us on just this really interesting topic of prosperity. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, great. Let me ask you, Ebonie, how would you define prosperity for you?
So, prosperity or being prosperous means to me that you have an abundance of something, whether it be an abundance of joy, abundance of wealth, abundance of family, friends. I guess prosperity means to me, if you have those things in abundance, you have an abundance of things to share. So I think that, if you happen to be fortunate enough to be prosperous in any realm, whether it be any of the things I mentioned before, whether it be wealth, money, joy, happiness, family, all of those things, if you're blessed enough to be prosperous, you should be able to share what you have in abundance. So that's what being prosperous means to me. And I think that if you're giving, then that perpetuates more prosperity. So I think that that is something that everyone should do, is just kind of give what they've been given.
It is like that, isn't it? In other words, The less you try to collect and hold on to, and the more you give, as to use that word, it just has this effect of creating more and more and more. And you used one of my favorite words, abundance. I love that word because the opposite of abundance is scarcity, right?
Right. You can't live, with this mindset of you have to hoard everything, otherwise it goes away, and I feel like that's never been what I'm about. And the more I give, the more you receive. Like, it's natural. That's the way of the universe, I guess,
I agree with you. And, it's interesting. One of the reasons I invited you onto this is I follow you on Instagram, and it really does seem to me that you have that abundance and, are living that kind of life.
Absolutely. I'm abundantly blessed and very prosperous. So I thank God every day for it. I want other people to be blessed by the blessings that I've been receiving. So that's kind of the life's goal, essentially.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, hey, let's do this. Let's give everybody a chance to get to know more about you. So
Sure.
What would you say is the defining moment or event that really brought you to your career path, where you're at today and what you're doing?
You know what? I think it's not one event. I think it's like several events throughout life that sort of have brought me to where I am at. I started in high school. I knew I wanted to be a doctor. Had no idea what kind of doctor I wanted to be. I personally went through 2 ACL injuries. So I went through like surgeries and rehab and physical therapy, all those kinds of things that I personally could identify with the medical field. And so, I matriculated through college, went to Hampton University, and then I went and did a post-bac program at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. And I feel like that's when the field of podiatry kind of showed itself to me. I was, really wanting to go to medical school. I wanted to be a surgeon. Orthopedics was something that, I wanted to pursue based off of my history with my knee surgeries. But after, doing a bout of shadowing and things of that nature, I was not super convinced that ortho was the right path for me. And like I said, a series of events kind of led me to podiatry. And I honestly was in church one day, and this lady next to me asked me for a piece of gum. And turns out she had this whole scholarship program that I was eligible for, which my post-bac program, instead of it being 1 year, became 2 years. And it was fully funded, fully paid for by this lady. And that second year allowed me to go and do shadowing more so with different doctors. And one of them happened to be a podiatrist. So without that like extra year that I decided to do, I probably would not have found the field of podiatry. And so once I was able to shadow and kind of do my research, I was like, you know what, this is for me. I really do think that I could do surgery. I can do sports medicine. I can be a private practice owner. I can do a lot of things that really do fit my personality holistically with podiatry as opposed to doing orthopedics. And so after that, I got accepted to podiatry school, and the rest is history. So I guess you could say it's a series of events that kind of led me to, the field of podiatry, but I'm so happy it did. Obviously when you're going through undergrad and graduate school, you kind of are like laser focused on just getting your degree, and certain things can happen and it feels like you've failed, or there's a bump in the road, or it's a setback. And, I'd be lying if I didn't say I didn't feel that at one point in life, but, everything happens for a reason. And, here I am.
Every really great story from everybody I've known is all about connecting those dots. And we don't know when we say yes to something. I have a rule in life: always take the meeting. Always take the meeting.
Yeah.
You can say no later, but don't say no now. You never know what that might connect you to, right, or what might happen. Do you have a piece of gum? Yes, let me change your life.
Yeah, let me change your life. Exactly. Thank God I had gum that day.
I write in my book about my daughter. She's an entertainment attorney now in LA, working on movies and all that stuff. And
that's awesome.
I remember when she was in law school and she was looking for an internship, of which she was told there aren't any. And she was everywhere all the time trying to get this internship. And, she was struggling. And I just kept saying, just keep moving forward. Just, you'll be fine. And so one of the things, she had read The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson because Dad insisted she read that incredible book, which just says, don't stop doing the small things, and encouraging her to go to those meetings, meet those people, build that network. And there was this one seminar at USC that she had been scheduled to go to. And she said that morning she was thinking, I don't, do I really want to go do this? But then she thought, yes, I have. I said I would do it. I'm going to go do it. So she goes and she spends the day. At the end, she's kind of like, well, maybe I could have skipped that one. She went out in the parking lot and got lost, and she couldn't find her car. And there was another woman in the parking lot, also lost, couldn't find her car. So they kind of joined forces and they found their cars together.
Bonded.
And they traded cards. This woman worked at NBC Universal. She's an attorney doing exactly what my daughter Iris wants to do. And Iris said, well, thanks for this. And so then Iris emailed her and said, it was great to meet you, whatever. I'd love to come by sometime and take you to lunch and pick your brain. She goes, well, why don't you come over to the big famous MGM lot? We'll have coffee there. And then she said, are you looking for an internship? And my daughter said, yes. And she said, well, we've got one. Why don't you give me your resume? Iris got that internship, and 1,000 people wanted that internship. She found out later. And because she lost her car in a parking lot.
She was in the right space at the right time.
And she met that woman, but then she talked to that woman. She had her card. She followed up. She did it again. And by the way, it didn't happen instantly, that whole thing. That now that I remember the story more, it was like the next year when she invited her to an event and she says, oh, I can't make it. So just like you said, excuse me, I'll take a piece of gum. That's great. And next thing you know, you're on an entirely different career.
Entirely different path, totally different path. So it's definitely life-changing. That's amazing for your daughter, for sure.
How did you end up being a worldwide television star?
You know what? Like I said, everything, it just happens in my life and I just kind of go with it, So, I was in my third year of residency in Jersey and looking for a job. And residency for me, for most people, it's pretty lonely. It's hardcore, very rigorous. And so I started in residency using my social media as sort of an outlet for myself. Like, hey, nobody knows what I'm doing every day. I need some encouragement, but I have this knowledge. Maybe someone will benefit from it. So I started posting every single day about foot facts, about, how to do self-care, how to, what nutritious tips and stuff I've been doing for myself lately to keep myself grounded. And I started getting a lot of people responding to the medical advice and personal things that I was doing. And so when it came time for me to get a job in my third year of residency, I was applying and found this one job that was an independent contractor in Orange County. They were like, it's going to be hard work. It's going to be like you building your practice from the ground up. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to continue with this social media scenario in order to build my practice base. So thankfully I got the job, moved back home to California. I started off seeing maybe 6 patients a day. And I was like, yay, got 6 patients.
Yeah, right.
So, all right, I'm on the move. So, I started doing more YouTube videos, more Facebook ads, more Instagram things. I started being more visible in the community. I did a couple of educational talks for women convention centers. And things just started to happen. Like my 6 patients a day became 12, then 15, then 20. I started getting more inquiries from different social outlets. Like I was on the doctor's TV.
Oh, yeah.
Just talking about like athlete's foot or something. And then before you know it, I started getting these emails from this production company. And to be honest with you, because of social media, I was a little like, why are they emailing me about a show about feet? This is kind of odd. I'm just going to delete it. So they kept emailing. And then the office manager was like, hey, these people are not going away. You might as well see what they're saying. Maybe it's legit. And so I responded to the email. Turns out the production company is very legit. And they've been doing this reality TV thing for a while. And the executive producer of the show really wanted to interview me before they shopped for networks to do this show. And so basically, I think they interviewed a lot of podiatrists throughout the country or wherever, because they interviewed, on the East Coast and the West Coast, everywhere in between. And they really wanted to interview me prior to shopping for these networks. And so I said yes, I always took the meeting. I took the meeting. Yeah. They followed me around for like a week and a half or so. And then we're like, yeah, we like what we see. We're going to pitch this to some networks and they're going to pick whoever fits their audience. It could be just you. It could be you and another doctor. Could not be you at all. But thanks for letting us probe your practice, And so I think that happened like in October. And by December, they had let me know that me and Dr. Brad were chosen to be on the show. And at first, it was literally like we didn't know what we were really getting into. Like the first few patients were people that had reached out to me over Instagram or my own patients. And they followed those patients for the first season. And now we're on season 3. Yeah. So, I mean, it happened like so fast. I sometimes have to pinch myself to be like, is this real? Like, I just started this practice with 6 patients a day. And now it's this whole big thing. And podiatry has forever changed from that, just from being self-motivated to just start my own thing, So it's utterly bizarre. I am thankful every day that it did happen. It's been a very exciting and crazy, scary road.
I've been working in podiatry with podiatrists for, over 15 years. And I have to tell you, it's wonderful for the profession because it just so much visibility and presents it so positively. So I'm not representing anybody, but on behalf of all of us that are involved in that whole world, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so happy it's been received well.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing, that Brad and I were both kind of like, oh God, like out of everyone they could have chosen, it's us.
Yeah. Well,
please let this be okay.
this could go really spectacularly badly.
Go bad or really good.
And everybody will know, at least for a little period of time. And after that,
Exactly.
oh, that's great.
So we're super thankful that it's very well received within the podiatry community. And obviously, like, the show is not for everyone. It's not for podiatrists. It's about podiatry, but it's for those people who like to see a circus, a little bit, but it's framed in like a learning style. So hopefully that it comes across in both realms, like the educational aspect and the wow factor. We're hoping that it comes off.
I think it's well done. Absolutely. It's well done. So, well, let's move on and talk a little bit more about prosperity. So now we all have these challenges and obstacles that can face us as we're going forward. Can you share what you deal with on your daily journey? What can trip you up?
Oh, man. I mean, in the past year and a half, it's been an abundance of that too, about tripping things up. But I guess, as a blanketed kind of thing that trips me up, it's just, the blockages of society at large. It's hard to practice medicine knowing what the person might need isn't covered by insurance, or knowing that you're talking to someone who needs a whole life change, nutritional change, all these things, but it's not feasible for them to do so based off of socioeconomic status or cultural blocks. Like, those are the kind of blockages I think in everyday practice that are a little frustrating. You work as hard as you can with your patients, but then sometimes the infrastructure is just not there for them to even begin their health journey. So you kind of have to be creative with that. Like, okay, let's see how we can get around this. And that kind of gets you a little fatigued. I would say I'm a super emotional person. I don't get emotionally fatigued very easily. But when you try different avenues to try and help your patients and none of these things are working, I would say that can kind of be a huge obstacle. Because a lot of times I'm trying to suggest more minimally invasive things that insurance just simply won't cover. But they will cover like a huge reconstructive kind of surgical option. So I would say that that's the biggest obstacle in my practice that I feel like I'm consistently trying to find new ways to overcome.
That's that's common for doctors, and certainly the doctors that I work with, to have that. In fact, let's just say from my perspective, you're younger. And after a long time, you can really deal with compassion fatigue and burnout and all the rest of it, including all of the usual rigmarole with, electronic medical records and, insurance payers and all the complexity.
Oh, yeah.
Finding that your way through it is really important, and to develop that resiliency so that in spite of all of that, you can see what all the good that's happening too. Well, what would you say are the top strategies that you use to keep yourself on track and heading in the right direction, whenever you're dealing with this and not sliding into bad habits?
So I just think that having that honesty and open lines of communication with my patients, I think that that's the biggest thing that helps me when I do come into roadblocks, And, some people are just a little bit more difficult to deal with than others. And so I kind of like reiterate and repeat certain things that could be considered roadblocks, For instance, today I had this conversation with this lady who her insurance just won't cover a certain surgical procedure, just like a hard stop. And I'm telling her, like, these are the different avenues in which we can work this out. Like, I could do a peer-to-peer. You can call them. These are the codes I'm using. And it's hard to navigate those waters because the patients are coming to you as the doctor for just fix it, So, like, I always have this conversation with patients, like, hey, you have to be in control of your own healthcare too. Like, you have to be the best proponent for your own health, just like I'm there with you. We're like a team in this. Like, you can't just leave me to do everything. So I think having those open lines of communication with the patient so they understand the process of things is very helpful. And then, for my own sake as a physician, like, I can't bring it home. I just have to know that when I leave the office, I've done the best that I could do for each and every patient, and I have to leave it there and have a life at home.
Yeah, there's no other way, right? There's no other way. You do everything in your power.
Yeah, it's easier said than done. It's hard to just look to wake up in the middle of the night and not think about what you have to do for certain patients and stuff like that. But I'm trying to get better at it. One day, maybe it'll click,
Yeah. Well, I think it's always just a journey. And just when you feel like, I really got this down, then you meet that person that touches your heart again and in a way that really does. So it's important for self-care, and all of that is so, so important.
For sure.
So, Ebony, the folks that are listening to this podcast, they're really trying to find their own way to their version of prosperity. What advice would you have for them that you'd like to share?
Well, I think that, I guess it's going to be cliche, but just kind of like knowing your why. If you have a reason or a purpose that you're trying to achieve, it's easy to gain prosperity. It's easy to convince yourself that all of your hard work, sleepless nights, and, sacrifice is going to be worth essentially your abundance at the end of all of it. Whether you're passionate about helping people, whether you're passionate about art or music or, whatever your passion might be, just know why you're doing it, why you're pursuing it. And I think that eventually your sacrifice will be gaining you a lot of prosperity. I know that specifically for podiatrists or medical professionals in general, you have some neutral years, not all the way happy, you have some neutral years where it's kind of like there are some good things and there's some bad things and there's a lot of stress. But like at the end of the day, you will always learn how to handle or manage your stress better. And then with that, with your success comes a lot more of you benefiting others. You yourself will be benefited, and overall you'll be very prosperous.
I really agree with you. In all the goal work that I do with our members, we always, the whole process is start with why. Because if you don't, and Simon Sinek wrote that really great book, Start With Why. And if you don't know your why, then when the thing happens, when, it's a particularly, not where you live, but, where a lot of people live, like it's a icy, snowy, gray day, and we've had 72 of them in a row. Why am I getting up and going to work? Which is why I moved to Las Vegas 6 years ago. Yeah, from Pennsylvania. Lancaster, actually. So, you know right where that's at. And
I sure do.
I slipped and fell on the ice at 8:00 in the morning out walking my dogs, broke 3 ribs in my back. I owned this house 6 months later. So I was like,
oh my
I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, this is it. This is where
I shall not,
last straw.
I shall not do this again.
I don't blame you. You
have to know your why, though. You have to know the why. And, everybody has things we face and challenge with. One of mine is managing my weight to a comfortable weight. And in the past, I used to weigh 420 pounds. And how did I get there? Well, too much pizza, and then there I am one day, now 150 pounds lighter than that, with numbers that my doctor said to me, Rem, you're 10 years younger this year than you were last year at this time. But the why is because I want to see my grandkids graduate from high school.
Wow.
And none of my daughters have actually had a granddaughter yet. Or, I'm just used to daughters. Could be a grandson. That'd be great with me. And if it's not in the cards for me to make it, that's fine. That's why I get up every morning and I walk and I'm doing what I'm doing. And I agree with you so much on that. Hey, so here's the fun question I like asking everybody. If you were a toy, any toy at all, what toy would you be and why?
I thought about this question. I was like, I don't even know. But then I came up with, I really liked a rocking horse. And I just think it's a classic, timeless toy. Everyone likes it. It could be an antique. It could be really beautiful. It's pretty intuitive with the motion. And I like that it stays in motion. I like all of those attributes of a rocking horse. So I think that I would be that.
I love that. You're my very first rocking horse.
Oh, well, good.
So that's great. No, that's beautiful. That reminds me of when I was a kid in the 60s, there was almost Marvel the Mustang. He wasn't a rocking horse, but you got on him and you could bounce up and down and he would move. Yeah.
It does take a level of imagination as a kid too, to like pretend you're somewhere else. Like I'm pretty imaginative too. Yeah. So you have to have a sense of imagination for the rocking horse as well. So.
For sure you do. Well, when I was a kid, it was all imagination, right?
That was it.
There was nothing else. Captain Kangaroo on television in the morning, but that was all. Wow, that's great. One last question for you before I let you go, and thank you again so much. But would you recommend for us like one really great book that we should all be reading?
Wow. Well, I'm really into like fantasy novels. I read those on my spare time, but there's so many of those I could recommend. But I think the one that I would recommend to everyone, not just to read just once, but a few times, if you haven't read it, The Alchemist. Have you read The Alchemist before? Mm-hmm. I just remember reading that book. I read it the year after I graduated from residency, and it's about a man on a journey. And like, I just feel as though every time I read that book, you gain something else, like another lesson comes from it, whether it be a journey in your religion, whether it be a journey with your profession or with relationships. Like there's something in there that you can learn from this man's journey. I'm probably going to read it again now that I've talked to you about it. So learn something else, but it's a really great book.
Thanks for recommending it. Hey, just for fun, what's your favorite fantasy book that you'd recommend to everybody?
Okay, so I'm reading the series right now, Children of Blood and Bone. They have like 3 different books. I'm on the second one right now. The first one is Children of Blood and Bone. The second one is Children of Virtue and Vengeance. And it's about magic and how magic was taken away. And this girl, she has to find it. She has to find like the spell or whatever to unleash the magic. So it's really good.
That's fun. That's fun.
So.
We all need those kinds of things to just really decompress.
Right. Just to go away, like escape,
Yes. And relax. It's funny. I'm reading something. It's got nothing to do with, personal development in that way. I'm reading Hermann Hesse. I don't know if you ever read any of Hermann Hesse's stuff.
Oh.
This one's called The Glass Bead Game or Magister Ludi. It's one he got a Nobel Prize for in the 40s. And I had been talking to a friend of mine and I mentioned the book and I thought, it's been a long time. So that's what I was reading whenever you joined me on this system here. So,
nice.
Anyway, I just want to say thank you again for spending the time and getting home and doing this with us. It's been delightful. And I wish you just so much success with it.
Thank you.
With the television show, but I think more than anything with all of those patients that you're doing such good work for. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Send up prayers and hope for them because we're doing more filming of the show. And honestly, it's getting like, these problems are getting worse and worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. In all the work I do with the podiatrists I serve, I've observed that the only difference between those who struggle and those who are truly prosperous is their mindset. Sharing all of our abundant blessings does create even more abundance in our lives. And it's the very definition, I believe, of a prosperous, joyous life. I love it. Let me know what you think. You can send me an email at rem@toppractices.com. Prosperity is the entire focus of Top Practices. Most doctors are struggling with the business of medicine, and those that aren't truly understand that through association with other successful practitioners, they can take their success to the next level or something greater like prosperity. Prosperity in business is a function of mindset, marketing, and management, and that's our mission at Top Practices. You can find out more about Top Practices, our marketing and management programs for doctors, our workshops, and annual summit at toppractices.com. Until next time, this is Rem Jackson. Smile when you wake up, and then have a really great day. Your best day ever. Nothing is more important.